Getting a Platinum Trophy is a huge accomplishment on PlayStation. There have been some easy ones throughout the years, but there have been some absolutely ridiculous Platinum grinds that they are a massive showing of skill and patience for anybody who managed to unlock them. In this video today, we're going to take a trip. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Jimmy or Chaos. Today, we are taking a trip through PlayStation history. We're going to check out what I think are 10 of the absolute hardest Platinum Trophy grinds ever released. You let me know in the comments which of these you actually managed to unlock. Circle of Trust. Don't lie now. Come on now. Be honest. Drop a like on the video. Let's get started with Crash Bandicoot 4. I honestly love that a bunch of the old 3D platforming franchises have been revived in recent years, but the upbeat tone and cartoony art style can often cause people to forget. You will forget that getting 100% most of these games was hard. Crash Bandicoot 4 was the perfect continuation of the classic PS1 trilogy, but it added a ton of new challenges in its own right, and the Platinum Trophy could be brutal due to the handful of very difficult trophies that you would have to get along the way. If you weren't prepared for banging your head against the wall with time challenges and precise platforming, you probably shouldn't even start this Platinum journey because you're inevitably just going to uninstall or quit before you get to the end. Now, I hope we get more Crash Bandicoot games and maybe a new Spyro or maybe a new Banjo-Kazooie game, but hopefully Crash 5 tones it down just a teeny bit on the Platinum Trophy difficulty because Crash 4, woo, it was almost unreasonable. At number 9, Batman Arkham series. Everybody loves the Arkham series, I think. Everyone except for the trophy hunters, because in order to get the platinum in any of the Arkham games, you would have to play through the main campaign multiple times, which wasn't a big deal because the campaigns are great, while also completing a bunch of Riddler challenges, solving literally hundreds of puzzles, finishing dozens of combat and Predator challenge maps with gold medals, and sinking hundreds of hours into making sure that you scour every little nook and cranny of the map. Arkham Knight is particularly a massive time sink, and if you're going to go for all the trophies for the platinum, get ready. Even some of the shorter games in the series like Asylum and City, they can eat up several days of your life. If you have one Arkham Platinum, I tip my hat to you. I commend you. If you have them all, wow. I mean, I have to ask, how much free time do you actually have? At number 8, Dark Souls Remastered. Now, From Software makes very difficult games, but usually the core combat isn't too bad once you nail the fundamentals like parrying, dodge rolling, or magic if you're more cheesy of an individual. Dark Souls 1, it's one of the biggest From Software games to date, excluding Elden Ring, of course, and naturally has a ton of trophies to grind for that can get really frustrating due to how old school the combat can feel to anyone who didn't play it when it came out. Dark Souls 1 is a very long game, and if you're going to get all the trophies, you're going to have to play it multiple times from several different builds and playstyles so you can find all the magic, interact with all the covenants, and get all the possible endings, which means grinding to the final boss and beating him at least twice, which can easily take 100 hours on its own. Like I said, Dark Souls 1 isn't too difficult once you come to grips with the fundamentals of the combat, but the Platinum Chase, woo! At number 7, Bloodborne. Speaking of From Software games, Bloodborne is one that everybody wants to be remade or ported to modern hardware, and I agree with those people. Now, it certainly was a smaller game than Dark Souls 1, but there's several things about the Platinum Trophy hunt that are actually harder. Due to the fact that Bloodborne is still capped at 30 frames per second, unlike other FromSoft games that run at 60, the parrying and the dodge rolling is a lot more difficult, and it can make that combat as a whole feel a lot more punishing. And even through Bloodborne, even though it's a shorter game than Dark Souls, it's still going to take dozens of hours to get through, and then you'll have to do it at least 1 or 2 more times in order to get all the trophies for Platinum. It's a masterpiece of a game. Absolutely needs to be preserved for future generations, so hopefully Sony wakes up, realizes how much unrealized revenue they're sitting on by letting the PS4 version gather cobwebs at their headquarters. I mean, From Software has literally said they want the game to be updated and preserved, but Sony is the one holding it up. Why? We may never know. At number 6, Devil May Cry 5. Capcom has been killing it the last few years, and one of the best titles they've released has to be DMC5. Absolutely gorgeous. Ball-busting hack and slash from 2019. Another example of a game that simply won't let you get the platinum trophies unless you get really good at the core combat loop, and that's a pretty tall order for a game this complex. DMC5 can certainly be finished by people who aren't amazing at the combat, but the platinum, it's not going to let you touch it unless you beat it several times or several of the higher difficulties. Prove your worth with combos, skill rating systems, all of which is not exactly the most generous system in the world. Achieving an S rank consistently in this game can take a really long time. It can take a lot of practice. So even though you can rush through the entire campaign in about 5 or 6 hours, you're going to have to do it over and over and over again once you get to the higher difficulties. Those runs, they're going to get longer and longer. The enemies are going to get harder and harder, and the boss fights continue to stonewall you on your way to, hopefully, your Platinum Trophy. Now we arrive at the top 5. God of War Ragnarok. It's one of the more common Platinum Trophies on the list. Still a game that a lot of people consider to be one of the hardest to nail the 100% on, so here it is. Long-awaited sequel, finally dropped in 2022, largely overshadowed at the Game Awards by Elden Ring, which is understandable, but it still has a huge following, and speaking of things huge, Ragnarok is a way bigger game than God of War 2018, which was already a massive game in its own right, and if you're going to check off everything on the Platinum checklist, get ready to sink close to 100 hours in. Weapons, side quests, secrets, upgrades, Easter eggs, you'll have to do it all. And in a game this big, that means a lot of time with a controller in your hand, and unfortunately a lot of time watching cutscenes, which not everybody's a fan of. Still a great game, and even though the Platinum Trophy is uncommon as opposed to rare according to PSN, I wanted to shout it out because it's not exactly an easy process. At number 4, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Some have called this the hardest game from Software ever made. Okay. It's different from the other games in their lineup, so it can be a little bit tougher to get the hang of if you were expecting something like Dark Souls or Bloodborne, but much like the other games we've talked about, the Platinum Trophy requires a ton of work from you, and there's simply no way around getting really good at this game, at least if you're dead set on finishing everything. If you weren't a fan of parrying in Dark Souls, you might as well uninstall now because parrying is everything in this game. This is one of those games that is hard to platinum, simply because it's an extremely difficult game that you're going to have to grind out for a really long time in order to get it. Granted, the game is also fantastic, so you're going to enjoy a lot of that grind, but whew. And speaking of games like that, at number 3, Hollow Knight. Many have called Hollow Knight the perfect 2D translation of the Dark Souls formula, and that's what's part of why people love it. 2D Metroidvania game, features gorgeous art, a really good soundtrack, incredible atmosphere, some really top-tier level design. It's super easy to get lost in the world. I mean, it's huge, and how much work you'll have to do to get to the end shouldn't be shocking at all. It's one of the rarest Platinum trophies on the PlayStation Network right now, according to PSN profiles. Only 8.5% of players have actually managed to get Platinum in this game. That's pretty insane when you consider the fact that it's sold millions of copies and continues to maintain a healthy player base despite being a single-player game. It's one of those games that continues to grow its community through positive word of mouth, and yet the Platinum percentage never goes up. Give it a try. Give it a try if you like 2D Metroidvanias and you have a lot of time on your hands, but don't actually expect yourself to finish it in any reasonable amount of time. At number 2, Plague Inc. Remember back in 2020 when everybody was playing this? Those were some pretty weird times. Real-time strategy game where the objective is to create and evolve a virus that is capable of destroying the world, and it's a pretty addicting game. You have to pay attention to what variables and traits of the virus aren't working, adjust them accordingly, eventually making the perfect sickness that can take over the planet. But since this is such a variable game, the later trophies are tough. There's a lot of things in the game that are almost entirely left up to chance. That can be pretty frustrating when you feel like you had a good run, but it all gets completely shut down by some random piece of RNG that not only messes up your virus, also sends you back to square one on some of the necessary trophies for Platinum. It is a very time-consuming game, and as of the recording of this video, only 7.3% of players have ever unlocked Platinum, giving it that very rare label on PSN. And now we arrive at number 1, the hardest PlayStation Platinum grind. I'm going to say Ninja Gaiden the Trilogy. I honestly couldn't decide which of the 3 games to put here, so I'm going to lump them all together for the number 1 spot. It's one of the hardest hack-and-slash franchises of all time. Even though Ninja Gaiden 3 is substantially easier than the previous ones, still takes a long time to finish. Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2, insanely difficult. Getting the Platinums is going to require you to show an absolute mastery of the combat, which hardly anybody has actually managed to do without going for Platinum. I mean, you understand? Ninja Gaiden 1 has a Platinum completion rate of 0.6%. Ninja Gaiden 2, slightly higher at 6%. And even though Ninja Gaiden 3 is seen as the easiest of the trilogy at 2.2% of the players actually unlocking all the trophies, it's still going to kick your butt over and over again. So it might be cheating to put all 3 games at number 1, but I felt like it deserved it. Seriously, 0.6% completion for Ninja Gaiden 1's Platinum Trophy? I challenge you to find me a Platinum with a lower completion rate than that. Let me know one game that was deserving of being on the Platinum grind list, guys, and I'll see you soon.